Okay, let's get into this. We're doing a deep dive today, looking at something with, well, a lot of history behind it, particularly in traditional settings.
Yeah, but we're looking at it through a really different lens, how young people see it today.
Exactly. We're talking about virginity, or trin tiet, as it's known in Vietnam, which is our focus area here.
And our source material, it's really interesting. It comes straight from a conversation with two young people in Vietnam. There's Hai Sum, he's a 22-year-old musician, singer, and Mai Hung, she's 25, a working professional.
So traditionally, virginity, especially for women, was often seen as this like major benchmark for morality, virtue even.
Absolutely. Losing it before marriage, that carried a lot of weight, usually negative.
But things seem to be changing based on these conversations.
Definitely a shift. Young people are talking about sex much more openly. It's seen more as just a normal part of life, a natural need.
So that's our mission for this deep dive, really, to unpack these modern views. How do Hai Sam and Mi Hung actually define virginity now? Is it still important? And if it is, how is it important?
And the big question, maybe, what do they think really defines someone's value today? We want to pull out the key insights for you from what they shared.
Okay, so first up, how are they even defining trin tiet these days?
Well, Hai Sam's take is super straightforward. He just says, the first time.
Simple as that.
Pretty much. And what's interesting is he mentions that, in his group of friends, they don't really use the word much. Not because it's taboo, but it just doesn't seem top of mind.
Just not a focus. What about Mai Hung?
She acknowledges the older idea, that it often means staying whole or not having had sex.
Okay.
But then she immediately adds this important bit. She sees it as important, but not overly necessary.
Not overly necessary. That's a key phrase, isn't it? It leads right into this question of, well, how important is it then, if it's not this strict moral rule?
Right. And both of them do say it still matters, but the way it matters has totally changed.
How so? For Hai Sam?
For him, it's all about the experience, the first time itself. It needs to feel right, with someone respectful. It should lead to a good feeling, a positive memory.
So it's about the event, the context, not the physical status beforehand.
Exactly. It's a reframe. And Mai Hung, she echoes that not overly necessary idea. She's very clear. A person's character, their worth, got nothing to do with virginity status.
So what makes it important for her then?
For her, it ties into things like being the right age, being at the right point in a relationship, feeling that deep trust and safety with your partner, enough to trao gi.
That Vietnamese phrase, trao gi, it means sort of to give or entrust oneself.
Yeah, it implies this really deep vulnerability, sharing something precious. So it's about readiness and trust within the relationship.
And this isn't just them, right? They mentioned their friends.
Yeah, Mai Hung says her friends are mostly pretty open, modern. They tend to think that, if there's real love and trust, girls can share these important things. Some friends disagree, sure, but she says the progressive view is more common.
And Hai Sam, what about his male friends?
He says pretty much the same. Among his guy friends, virginity just isn't really talked about or seen as a big deal anymore. He actually sees that as positive. Like a result of better education, people having a better view of that first experience. He feels kind of lucky his peers aren't so strict about it.
It really does sound like a cultural shift is underway. You might be listening and thinking about how this lines up with views you've heard, or maybe hold yourself.
Yeah, it makes you wonder, how does this changing idea of what's important actually play out in people's lives, their choices?
Well, let's make it really concrete. Mai Hung shared her own story. She said, initially, she really felt she had to save her virginity for whoever she married.
And think about the impact of that. She said she didn't date for 4 whole years in college because of it.
Right.
That's a long time, a lot of pressure.
4 years, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. So what happened?
Her first time was kind of spontaneous. She was 22 with a close male friend. It happened after a class party, some drinking involved.
Okay. And how does she feel about it now?
That's the key part. She says she doesn't regret it. Not at all. She sees every relationship, good or bad, as a learning experience, something that helps her grow, become more complete.
That's quite a perspective.
She even says she's thankful to him they broke up later because of distance, but thankful because he helped her become more open, more confident.
From feeling obligated to feeling liberated, it sounds like. What about Hai Sam? Did he share anything personal?
His angle is different, but just as interesting. He basically said the question of whether his girlfriend was a virgin before him, it just wouldn't cross his mind.
Really? Not even a flicker of curiosity?
Apparently not. He's focused entirely on how things feel now, his feelings, her feelings. He mentioned they were each other's first, but he frames it as something they shared together, not about their individual pasts.
So the first time becomes a shared landmark, not a prerequisite.
Right. And he reflected a bit on the idea of waiting for marriage. He said it's not necessarily silly, but maybe, pretty hard to actually do. He tries not to stress about the future, just focus on the present.
These stories really highlight how these changing views are, like letting people push back against those old expectations, focusing more on trust, the present moment, personal growth.
Yeah, and speaking of old expectations, let's tackle that direct link people used to make between virginity and a woman's morality, that traditional cornerstone.
How do they see that now, Sam?
He's a bit philosophical, says morality, virtue, they're abstract, often defined by what most people think at the time. But he believes, and he stresses, it's his belief that lots of people just don't connect virginity to morality anymore. Its weight has lessened.
He thinks it's changing, but maybe not gone entirely for everyone. What about Mai Hoon?
Oh, she's much more direct, cuts right through it. She says modern young people, they completely separate virginity and morality. Period.
No connection at all.
None. Being not a virgin doesn't make a woman hung. That's a strong term, like bad or depraved. She can still be moral, contribute to society.
She also made a good point about the physical aspect, didn't she?
Right. It's just a membrane. It can break from sports, accidents, not just sex. Her conclusion is really strong. All girls, virgin or not, deserve happiness in love and marriage, full stop.
That phone separation then brings up, well, the practice of hymen repair.
Vomiting Trin. How did they view that?
Mai Hoon sees it as, depending on individual need, a personal choice may be driven by pressure, but she immediately pivots to what really matters for a lasting relationship.
Which is?
Faithfulness.
That's the bedrock, she says. Fixing a membrane doesn't guarantee faithfulness. If someone's going to be unfaithful, they will be regardless.
So the repair is superficial compared to the real issue of trust and commitment. How did Sam see it?
He was pretty critical, called it an act of stubbornness, fear, maybe even deceit.
Deceit, wow.
Yeah, he questions what kind of relationship that is. If one partner needs that or insists on it, he doesn't support it. Argues virginity is also about the feeling, the emotional side. Being honest with yourself, with your partner, that's way better than keeping that kind of secret.
So they both land on honesty and the real substance of the relationship being more important than the physical symbol.
Definitely. Now, shifting gears slightly, let's look at the male perspective, specifically this idea of a male instinct to, quote, conquer, and how that used to tie into wanting a virgin partner.
Right, that old stereotype. How did Sam react to that?
He didn't mince words. A man who wants to, conquer his girlfriend, but also expects his future wife to be a virgin, he called that Haiten a bit awful or terrible.
Strong words.
Yeah. He acknowledges that maybe the instinct to conquer exists, but he feels lucky his own friends don't hold that specific double standard about marriage. He described men who do think that way as, kind of a bit silly or annoying, basically not the kind of guy he wants to be.
So he rejects that whole mindset. What was Mai Hoon's take on men expecting a virgin trophy, as the outline put it?
Equally sharp. She said, a man marries a woman to share life responsibilities, not to get a chin tish, a trophy. She values men who can look past history and focus on the present.
She had a strong point about agency too, right?
Absolutely. She said she wouldn't be afraid to leave a marriage if respect or safety were gone. Because virginity, it's natural, inherent. It's not something a man gives you that you have to return. She called men who demand it very awful, lacking courage, irresponsible.
Oh. Wow. So between them, they pretty much dismantle that traditional expectation. Okay, what about preferences regarding sexual experience itself? Does it matter if a partner is experienced or not?
Mai Hoon, speaking for herself as a woman, said she's actually attracted to mature men with experience, both in life and sexually.
Why is that?
She likes new things, likes learning, and she feels confident she satisfies her more experienced partners. So experience is a plus for her.
Interesting. What about Sam, from the guy's perspective? Experienced or inexperienced partner?
He said he has zero preference, none at all.
Really?
Yeah. He likes the person, their history doesn't factor in. He finds things to appreciate in both scenarios, like teaching someone inexperienced can be nice, or just enjoying things with someone who knows the ropes. It's all good.
So the experience level itself isn't the draw.
Not for him. But he did add an interesting thought that the idea of a first time together as a couple can become important later on in a relationship as a way to reset things, express feelings again, shifting focus from the past to the shared present and future again.
Okay, so pulling all these different threads together, the definitions, the shifting importance, the personal stories, challenging the morality link, the views on male expectations. What's the big picture? What does this conversation tell us about what actually creates value for a person now, if it's not virginity?
Well, Hisam's view is that there's no single answer. Value is abstract, subjective. Beauty standards change. Who you click with personality-wise changes depending on context.
So it's relative.
Kind of. He feels it ultimately boils down to compatibility with a specific person. His main advice: be yourself. Trust your own gut, your own thoughts. Don't just follow old rules or what others expect.
And being authentic helps you find the right person who sees that value.
That's his take, yeah. Authenticity attracts the right match. Mai Hung adds another layer. She agrees that how your partner sees you matters, partly, but she puts huge emphasis on self-confidence. That's how a woman creates her own value.
So confidence is the foundation.
Exactly. So the overall conclusion, summed up nicely in the source material, is that value is seen as self-created now.
Something you build yourself, internally.
Right. It's about self-love, trying to be a good person, growing, and it's absolutely not defined by whether you're a virgin or not. That seems crystal clear from their perspectives.
This deep dive, it really has shown how much the conversation is changing for, well, at least for these young people.
Yeah, it's a dramatic shift away from physical status and old roles.
It seems much more focused on inner character, sincerity, trust in relationships, self-worth.
And the quality of the experiences you share, things like that.
Okay, so as we wrap up, something for you, the listener, to think about based on all this. If value is increasingly seen as self-created, internal, built on self-trust, not external markers like virginity, then how does understanding and navigating personal boundaries your own and your partners become maybe even more crucial in building healthy, meaningful relationships today, especially when expectations can be so different from person to person or generation to generation?